Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I'd like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the SOG Knives Altair XR. Now, at the moment, my voice is still in the process of returning. I've been down for the count for a couple of days, but I feel good enough to start running my mouth, essentially. So, I have off to the side here my laptop, which I will be pulling specs and information off of SOG's website. SOG does stand for Studies and Observation Group. And this is the Squid Ink colorway. There are 4 other colorways. Some are high vis, some are a little bit darker. I don't believe they have an all blacked out one. That would be cool, but this is as dark as it gets. The price of this guy currently, at the recording of this video, is $124.95. That may vary depending on when you are watching this video, sometime in the future. Let me go a little bit down here and bring up the dimensions. So the overall length is 7.2 inches, blade length 3.2. Product family is altair, manufactured in Taiwan. The closed length is 4 inches. A couple deployment methods: you have reverse flick, thumb flick, and then of course using momentum and compressing the crossbar style lock there, you can swing the blade out. The weight is 1.9 ounces, which is extremely impressive because this is what a lot of people would consider a medium to full-size knife, and it's actually going to compare a lot to a bug out, which talking about the bug out, I'm just going to be going back and forth between the two models. They're both wonderful knives, honestly. There is a lot to love about this. I'll tell you guys up front that if you are looking for something that is going to be a light duty folding knife to go camping and every ounce matters to you, this is highly recommendable. But there are a lot of downsides to this thing too, of course. And it actually has a tie nitride coating, which is pretty cool. I do have pulled up, also off of Blade HQ's website, the cheapest bug out you can get. And we'll go through that after I give my little spiel about this and do some size comparisons in a sec. Blade material is their Cryo 154 CM, which is good steel. Their hardness ranges from 59 to 63. Sorry if you hear a dog barking in the background. And that's really about it. So let's bring out some size comparison knives. I am actually going to be missing one as I recently gifted it to my cousin so he can try out a Spyderco knife. I gave him my pair of 3, so you guys will no longer be seeing a pair of 3. But here it is up against a bug out. As you can see, they're very similar. The bug out is, I believe, a hair longer, but the SOG actually has just the slightest bit more of usable cutting edge there, but the handle's a little bit shorter, so that's interesting. I have the Osborne 940. Let's bring this down a little bit more centered. There's that. Let's do my Civivi Elementum. Very similar in overall dimension. And Demco 80-20.5. Close in overall length. And then I have the last 2 knives here, Spyderco's PM2, definitely dwarfs it for sure. And what's going to be replacing my pair of 3 is going to be my Native 5, of course. Who could have guessed that? Probably everybody that actually watches me. The Native 5 is one of my favorite knives. So yeah, this will be replacing the pair of 3. Moving forward in my whole review process and all that. So very similar overall, and we're going to be doing thickness up against makes lightweight, because this is really the only stock knife at this point, pretty much. So there's that. So you can see it is pretty darn thin. Alrighty, so let me just give a little spiel about this thing to show you guys up close. Nice texturing, nothing too rough. It's actually pretty smooth, but it's appreciated. Definitely some jimping here on the back that matches up with some spine jimping there. So it's definitely useful. There are some knives that have jimping that's just like, okay, there's just like no point in even having it. But this is useful, and I like that. Some branding here on the blade, something you guys can't expect with SOG. I personally am not the biggest fan of it, but it really doesn't bug me at this price point. Cryo 154 cm, Taiwan, and that is about it. You guys can check out the plunge grind there, so you guys will have a lot of material to go through before creating a horrendous smile on this model here. Blade stock thickness, I don't see it at the moment. No, it doesn't have, like, on the website it doesn't even have the blade stock thickness. But I will tell you guys that in use, taking this to work and just, you know, daily carrying it and stuff like that for a little bit, this blade, solely on geometry, outperforms my bug out like crazy, just because it's really thin. That's all it is, really. Fully flat ground, as you can see, there's no swedge in comparison to the light little, I suppose, decorative swedges and flat that's on the bug out. And comparison, they're pretty darn close, but I think the SOG has the upper hand with thinness. Essentially the same blade shape. The bug out is a little bit more spear pointy, and this is more of a definitive drop point for sure. One of the things I do definitely enjoy about this knife is that this has ball bearings. They're tiny cage bearings. I don't believe they're ceramic. They're most likely steel, but out of the box, this thing had ridiculously smooth action, and it has at this point broken in, and it's just gotten better and better and better. It's very difficult for me to not call this thing toy-ish feeling, but it's because it's so light, and a lot of the main components that you'd be interacting with on this knife in comparison to something else are made out of plastic. So the way the access lock, crossbar style lock is designed is basically the same thing as it is on a lot of benchmade products, but there are these caps that are made out of plastic and they rattle. There's a lot of give to them, and you can hear they rattle a lot. So to me, that is a possible tolerance issue, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. Some people, it may not really bug them that much. Also, the thumb studs, they're made out of plastic, but they work really well. They serve their purpose for sure, as long as you land on them properly or get your nail underneath them properly. The pocket clip here is wonderful. In and out of the pocket, it is excellent. It is reversible, but it is a nightmare to actually take this knife apart. It looks very simple on the surface. You have T6 on both sides, which kind of sucks. T8 would have definitely been preferable, of course, but in there it is just a mess of little parts and screws and bits. This does have some steel liners that were actually very well finished. I was very impressed by that. A lot of little holes for weight relief, which is really cool, and that's what allows this thing to be at that 1.9 ounces, which still is wonderful. So for me personally, I took this knife apart once, and it took me forever and a day, what it felt like, to actually put it back together. So it's not something that you're really gonna have to do much, but if you ever really need to, just know you're in for a doozy for sure. Taking a look back here, one of the little fitment issues that I found was that there were gaps on the back spacer here. And one thing that I wasn't the biggest fan about was that like there's these two giant gaps and it looks like the thing is about to fall apart, but I would squeeze them and they would go together. The gaps would close. So what I did was I took it apart and I noticed that there's these little plastic pins that interact with each other when this whole end is coming together, and they weren't that clean. Like there was a lip to the plastic from, you know, poor machining and shaping and stuff like that, that I just took something to just scrape it and pick at it, and there was actually debris in the corresponding hole that I had to dig out, little flakes of plastic from when it was being machined or milled, whatever, or shaped. I don't know the proper terminology for you know, messing with plastics and stuff like that, or FRN, whatever you want to call it. That's essentially what it was. So there was just debris in the corresponding holes that the pins would set themselves in when this thing is, you know, fully constructed. So that was a little bit of annoyance, but I was able to clean out one of them well enough to where the gap closed up here, but the little gap here, as you could see, still present. I wasn't able to clean it out well enough, I suppose, and at this point in time it's not really worth it to me, so it's just the slightest little gap. Another cool thing about this thing is that it is perfectly centered. It came perfectly centered, and when I went to go put it together, it was very easy to get it centered. And what's also impressive about this specific knife is that it is extremely solid. There is no blade play at all in any dimension. It checks all the boxes versus my bug out, which the only reason why my bug out has good action is because it is on the looser side. So I do have the slightest little bit of side to side, nothing up and down, and you know, nothing in, you know, there's no movement in the barrel, but I do have the slightest bit of side to side. And some people could say, well, you know, you just haven't broken your bug out in. Yeah, I definitely have. I've also even polished the washers both sides and polished the part of the blade in which it interacts with. So it is ridiculously smooth and very, you know, just everything down in there is very well refined. And honestly, I don't really hard use my knives, but I do play with them a lot, like a lot. Even to the point where I actually broke one of my Omega springs on this. And I was running it with just the one Omega spring, which was functioning fine. But you know, there's a big difference in the action here. This is a little bit more substantial, more heavier duty feeling. Of course, this is also made here in the US, which is wonderful. This is not, but I will be showing you guys this as a visual example, but this is of course not a stock bug out anymore at this time. But like I said, I do have here the cheapest bug out that I can find. Blade length 3.24 inches. Blade material on a base one is S30V, which is definitely going to hold an edge way better than 154 cm, which is cool. But the only one of the differences between the blades is that, you know, this comes standard with a, you know, a coating to help with corrosion resistance and just typical wear, while a typical bug out has a satin finish. And here, at least on this channel, me personally, I don't really care for satin finishes. They get scratched really easily and they go to shit really fast. But a bug out, the idea behind it was always supposed to be a very lightweight knife that you could just throw around, but something that it was confidence in hand, and you know, made in the US, which is wonderful. And I love the bug out for all of those, you know, properties. And honestly, the price isn't too much different between the two. So the cheapest bug out is $162 currently, and it's the satin blade with blue thumb studs. They might be titanium, I'm not 100% sure, but it has black hardware and the like dark blue, navy blue, whatever, Grivery scales with a also blacked out shorty clip. The weight on this guy, let's see if I can find it, 1.85 ounces. So guarantee you will not be able to tell the difference in the weight. Ergonomics, I personally think that the SOG is pretty comfortable, but from what I do remember, when I did have my regular scales on my bug out, that one was also very comfortable too, and a little bit wider in the hand, so it was a little bit more hand filling. And when I showed you guys a little while ago about the ratios of blade and handle and all that kind of stuff, as you can see here, there's a little bit more handle to a bug out, which is cool, and that's something that's definitely appreciated. So there's a lot of give and take between these two. All in all, the SOG Altair XR is a highly recommendable knife if you're in the market for something that can, so maybe if you're kind of like me and you have a bug out that you've done a lot of modifications to, pretty much at this point all the hardware, thumb studs and everything is titanium, including the scales, the clip, and all that. So I've spent a significant amount of money to get this knife to be like this. I'm not going to be throwing this around and just treating it like whatever, kind of like how I did when it was still stock. Now, if you want something to maybe not replace it, but take its place for harder tasks, maybe if you're going camping, like I will take this camping versus my now heavily modified bug out. That's really the only reason why I would recommend getting something like this. Also, if you just like the overall design, I think this is a really good looking knife. There are a lot of things that I would definitely change. Get rid of the branding on the blade. No one gives a shit. This definitely needs to be T8. There is no benefit to it being T6. It doesn't change the aesthetic. I understand having minimalistic hardware, but something back here needs to definitely be tweaked to just be a very simple, pinned construction. Like you could have the back spacer or Chicago screws or even posts. Well, my bug out doesn't have it, but because I've put a backspacer, but originally it had the barrels, just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I felt like they were just trying to do something that didn't need to happen, but overall, this thing is pretty darn sweet. It's super smooth, comes at a pretty good price point. If you can get over the plastic thumb studs and the toy feeling of the lock, this is a wonderful little knife that you could definitely take camping and just not really be too worried about. I do definitely believe that it locks up solidly. The Omega springs on this are on the lighter side, but I will say that they haven't really changed much from when I got it. So I like that consistency. I definitely appreciate that. At this point, I don't really think I missed anything. So a wonderful little clip, cool little backspacer. Oh, this does actually come with a extra backspacer that you guys saw in the unboxing. It's here, haven't used it. And basically it's just to have like a lanyard attachment if that's something you guys like, but that comes with every unit that you purchase, which is cool. So nice little added item. But yeah, that is pretty much my thoughts on the SOG Altair XR lock. This is a wonderful little knife. I highly recommend it. SOG does run sales here and there. So if you're able to snag one when it goes on sale, go for it. I think you will definitely enjoy this little guy as much as I have. At this point in time, I've decided that I'm actually going to be selling my unit. I have not sharpened it since I got it. I've just been stropping it, but before I sell it to whoever is interested in it, I will be actually putting a really good edge on there, because that's something that I would want if I was purchasing a used knife at this point. And it's 125 bucks essentially. I'll do like 115. So 110, 115, around there, just to cover the cost of shipping on nafsale.com and their percentages that they take away. At this point in time, NAFSale, they're a little weird when it comes to their shipping process. I have a lot of money that I invested into stamps and stuff, so I can ship out my own stuff. But I have to go through their method, and it actually takes money off of the overall amount. So while I may sell a knife, let's say for $100, they have their percentages, and then the around usually under $10 that it costs to ship out a knife. So if I'm lucky, I'll see like 80 bucks, 79, around there. So there's that. So I'm just trying to get back most of what I spent on this, just to experience it. So this thing definitely hasn't been thrown around or anything like that. It's still in pretty darn good condition. And yeah, that's really it. You can see a little bit of grime there just from playing with it, but that can definitely be cleaned off. So what I'm gonna do is, from the time of this video, if you guys see this and you're interested in it, I will do 110, but after a week, I'm gonna post it on NAFSale, and it's, well, I'll just do 110 over there too. But to help me get most of what I'm asking for back, I would definitely appreciate it. So if you're interested in this guy, of course, it'll ship with the extra little backspacer. Again, I'm asking 110 for it. If anybody's interested, go ahead and comment down below, and we will figure out how to do a proper exchange. So with that being said, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll be linking down all that I can in the description. Thank you.